Well, welcome back to Key Point. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, also on 3FM 92.7, also on DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We are also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and also W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Now, my guests joining me in studio for these all-important topics as earlier introduced. The Honorable Nelson Roxon Dafeamekpor is Member of Parliament for the South Bay constituency. He's a private legal practitioner and a member of the Constitutional Legal and Parliamentary Affairs Committee of Parliament. His constituency was heavily hit by the spillage of the Akosombo Dam excess water. Roxon Nelson Dafeamekpor, good morning, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning to my brothers, and it's a privilege to be here once more.
Indeed. Also, Martin Pebble is private legal practitioner. He is the leader of one of 3 bondholder groups, and then also the convener of the Komi-Preko Reloaded demonstration. Lawyer Martin Pebble, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Okansi.
Perennial critic of Ekufo.
Which we must continue to do, because he said he's philosopher king, and he's ended up to be the worst.
Okay, let's stay on course. We haven't started yet. Also, private legal practitioner, lawyer Akbar Yusuf Komedi, is a special assistant to the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bamia, and flag bearer-elect of the NPP. Council, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Alfred.
Great. Also joining us is Professor Ransford Jampo. He's a professor of political science at the University of Ghana, Legon, written quite extensively about the democracy in this country and beyond. And while he speaks, you can make some time and read a lot more. Professor Ransford Jampo, good morning, welcome.
Morning.
He is also the president of the University of Ghana UTAG branch. Now, before we get into the election of Dr. Mahmoud Bamia and really what that means for the NPP, this week, the energy minister was in parliament accompanied by the Water River Authority officials. In fact, there's that consensus that VRA must answer some questions about the spillage that has displaced over 50,000 people on our last count, plus a number of farmlands and other investments that have been affected. Now to hear from Dr. Matthew Poko Prempe about the element of resettlement, because that's the major conversation now, that after all of this, what has been put in place for the people who have been displaced, affected by the spillage. This is what he said. Take a look.
Last week, and I said from this, I would never answer for things I'm not responsible for. I said the government has set up an interministerial committee that is still working. We are not out of the doldrums yet. And that when we finish, Parliament can inquire from them their reports and how they behave. We will do things that are necessary, but it's a committee that has to decide. I think that we have a difficult time because where the flooding has been carried every year, upstream north, there's a resettlement packages that are sent to them every year. And as soon as the water resides, the human beings go back to the site. And it's not because of anything, it's because of economic livelihood. They're either fishermen who settle around the coast, or they are farmers who want the best land, which is found where the water is. So it's a difficult thing that we have to deal with. It's a really, really difficult thing. One of the chiefs said yesterday that this is not the first time his village or his area has been flooded. But every time, he even advocated that we should build them shelters so that, because he knows that the people will go back to the areas that they will flood. So that when it's not flooding, the people will come, or when it is flooding, they will come to the areas. And when it is receded, they'll go. So it's a difficult thing. You provide such shelters for difficult places. So I think the experts will have to deal with it, and we are not experts.
Nelson Dafeamekpor says this is a continuous work, that the interministerial committee is doing its work, and the element of resettlement, understand, is there's a conversation ongoing. Has there been any engagement whatsoever, giving you a clear indication of the kind of resettlement that is even being considered in the first place?
Thank you very much. Good morning once more. Good morning to my constituency, Peki Palik Pevetongo, especially Gemini, who have suffered the brunt of this flooding and in distress. As we speak, the 13-member interministerial committee hasn't issued any statement regarding the problems we have in the Volta region and some other parts of the country. My expectation is that they would have been giving us a weekly update on the situation. What I know, and that's the fact, is that the last time they visited the areas was when the president came. All of them trooped and followed the president. As soon as the president left, that is the end. So I really don't know what this interministerial committee is doing. And I don't think this is the kind of thing that you need an interministerial committee to handle.
Why do you say so?
NADMO is capable. NADMO is the statutory institution set up in law to be able to handle matters such as this. How are we suggesting that NADMO is not capable?
Because
NADMO,
we all do know they
NADMO
are under
appeared before
resourced.
the Public Accounts Committee in August and stated clearly that they are under resourced. In fact, the Director General told the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee clearly that as of that August, if in the event that we had a disaster, they would have been incapacitated in handling it. And truly, as if the chairman of the committee anticipated this happening in October.
And this was in February.
No, August. This year,
August.
just a couple of months back.
That's just
in
a
Parliament.
month before
they came to
the
Parliament.
the disaster.
So we need to resource NADMO. If you see some of the ministries featuring in this interministerial committee, what exactly are they doing?
So this resettlement, in what form are you expecting?
It has to come
as-
in the
as
form of a housing.
housing.
Yes, it has to be in the form of
You want
housing.
the houses built for the people.
Yes,
who
low-cost housing built for the people. That's how it's done everywhere. That's how you resettle people. It has to take the form of housing. Then, like the Minister of Agri put out much earlier when the news of the disaster filtered through, that government is willing to make available some 40 million World Bank facility. So again, that will be to putting the people into some form of the agrarian activities to be able to continue to engage in their subsistence farming. And mind you, I have made the point that if you consider the entire spectrum of flooding that has affected the Volta Basin, we are likely to face food crisis from January, February, because
Well, the
that
Deputy Agri Minister says that's not true.
on what basis is he saying not true?
Said that
Farmlands.
there's enough buffer.
You see, it's not about enough buffer. He has no understanding of what constitutes the
He said this
Volta
yesterday.
Basin.
He addressed
The
the press.
Volta Basin is entirely the bread basket of this country, where vegetables such as cabbage, okra, tomatoes, food crops such as potatoes, cassava, maize, millet, rice are cultivated in large quantities, including cowpea. And all these thousands of farmlands that are under water as we speak. And he says that we won't have food crisis. Anybody who will look at this situation and the extent of the deluge, and the extent of the flooding, and the extent of the farmlands, and the acreage that's gone underwater, if any analyst will look at this and say that you do not anticipate food shortages and therefore you plan for it, I hope that he will appreciate the fact and say that government will take steps to ensure that we do not experience that. But other than to say that they have enough buffer stock, it tells me that he has very little appreciation of the situation on the ground.
I see. So at what point should the resettlement process really start? Because we understand that now the waters have started receding.
No, let me
in
let
some
me make
areas.
that point.
That's
The waters are receding downstream because the excessive spillage is being stopped. But now there's a calculated spillage. The water is still flowing,
Okay.
but in a calculated manner. The excessive one is stopped. So waters that have spread to areas that they've never been before, that water has never been in 50, 70 years, of course, it will recede back to its original channel. The estuary, the water will now flow in the original estuary into the sea.
Okay.
And the tributaries. But upstream, that is behind the dam, the basin, the lake area, the waters are not receding. The water levels, as at this morning, the water levels are around 276.92 or so feet. Just a foot shy of the maximum 278 feet. So the water level in the dam is still nearly at its brim.
And Dr. Matopoko Pempe said this, and we'll put that on the screen right there. He says, it is never true that there is a point mark for VRA to spill. What is true is that there is a point mark for the dam's integrity, which VRA works towards. And he can say that going forward, nobody can stand anywhere and say it won't happen again. And I recall that you had been here a few weeks back to make the point about the point where when the levels of the water get to, there has to necessarily be a spillage.
Yes.
The Energy Minister contradicts that point. He's challenging that point that you put out there. There's really a point that there has to be a spillage. It is the integrity of the dam that is taken into central focus and consideration at any point in time.
Yes, he misunderstood my question. I asked after he addressed the chamber
on the floor of Parliament.
After he addressed the chamber, I asked him, and I wanted to find out at what point is VRA mandated to spill. And then he made the technical point that when the dam, when the sanctity of the dam is threatened. Now, under what circumstances would the sanctity of the dam be threatened? It is when the water levels are approaching the maximum. That is the basic reasonable understanding. And the maximum water operating level for the dam is 278 feet. So, as an institution, if you calculate that your inflows are such that you cannot contain water up to the maximum level of 278 feet, what do? You will spill. So these are the things you should be telling people, and not say that there's no point that the VRA will be mandated to spill. Because once the integrity of the dam is threatened from about 275, 276, 277 feet, 278, you will spill. Especially taking into consideration the volume of inflow. It's a simple hydrological cycle. How much water is filling the dam is such that if I spill, I will still be able to receive enough water to operate the hydro. That's all.
You see, on debate about the resettlement, the Energy Minister was clear that where the flooding has been occurring every year, upstream north, there's a resettlement package.
Yes, I'll speak to that. I will address that.
That is sent every year to you.
It's not true.
It's not true.
Yes, as we speak, VRA hasn't given the entity. You see, VRA has a subsidiary called the Water Trust Fund. It is the trust fund that manages the resettlement communities. That's how Nkrumah established it. A heft of that mandate to an entity called the trust fund. So the VRA trust fund, by statute, is to receive $500,000 every year from VRA, the mother company, to be able to handle all these matters and manage the resettlement communities.
$500,000.
Yes.
Every year.
Yes. Those who are on the board, who are on the trust fund board, tells me that for the past 2 or 3 years, VRA has not remitted that amount of money to the trust fund to be able to undertake all these activities. Then, out of panic, they released some 2-point-something million to them, I think a couple of days ago. So the trust fund hurriedly met yesterday to consider some of these matters. But let me add that even VRA has not finished constructing the resettlement communities for traditional areas whose lands were lost in the deluge during the construction of the dam. Like Tongo traditional area, they are supposed to have 3 different resettlement communities. They got only 1. 2 are outstanding. They have not received compensation for their lands lost.
Okay.
Todume has not received compensation for their lands lost. Tokpalime has not received compensation for their lands lost. So then there are a lot of other traditional areas who are, some are in court, some have also petitioned the trust fund pursuing compensation. And so this matter, which is of currency, has given momentum for those people to further pursue their compensation matters with VRA in terms of the farmlands.
Right.
By the arrangement, VRA ought to have done the road construction for these resettlement communities. The resettlement communities are supposed to have community managers, like the mayors for these communities. They have abandoned all these arrangements in the law. Okay. So nobody manages these resettlement communities. The buildings are falling into desuetude. They're in a state of dilapidation all over. If you go to the Kwawu area, to the Afram area, to Kajeji area, to Yeji area, to the Bole area, all the way to Krachi, down to Todume, Tongo, Kaira, all the way. Aveme, all those areas where we have resettlement communities. The communities have been abandoned. You understand? Right. So we need to revisit this matter.
Okay, indeed. And as the interministerial committee, from what the energy minister is saying, is continuing its job, we will see especially how the coming days will look like on the very germane issues that you have raised about the resettlement.
Yes.
And who has to bear the burden of this resettlement, and then also how swift this resettlement has to be, especially because the people who have been affected are still reeling under the impact of this spillage.